Alright, so now we're going to work on the broadhead. So this is a broadhead that I've done in pretty much the same style that we're going to be doing today. It's a fairly narrow broadhead. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide. And this blade is 2 inches long. Cutting edge is about 2 inches. So what I'm going to be using for this is a steel tie plate. Now I'll list the exact dimensions of this tie plate. It's one of these tie plates, and we're actually going to be cutting our broadhead out of this area between these lines. So you can see I've already laid this out, and it's really simple. These little markings denote center, so if you can see, this is center, and then that center. From here to here is 2 inches, and then this is 5/16 of an inch wide. This little drop is about 1/8 of an inch from here to here, from the drop, and then the actual edge is sort of you want to pretty much go triangular, but put a little bit of curve into it, a little bit of a convex curve. And once you've got this, you can cut it out with the hacksaw, or what I'm going to be doing today is I'm actually going to be cutting out with a pair of tin snips. So I've got my tin snips here. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this out from the rest of the tie plate. And one of these tie plates will give you about 8 broadheads. So here we've got this cut out. Now I'm just going to go and cut it out just like using a pair of scissors. So we've got that cut out. Now just go and cut the sides here. So now I'm going to go and cut along the tang here. Alright, here it is. Now if you use the saw, you should be able to go on to filing this and getting it to shape. If you use the tin snips like I did, you'll notice that it's all warped now. So we're actually going to pound this out with a hammer to flatten it out. And we're also going to use the hammer to harden the edges up just a little bit because we're not going to heat treat this. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, here's the point. I'm just going to lightly pound these areas with a hammer just to flatten it out. So just go really light. So now that it's pretty much flat, what I'm going to do is lightly pound on both sides of each edge. This is going to kind of thin the edge a little bit, but it's also going to harden the steel, work hard on the steel a little bit. So there you go. So now it's nice and flat, and I've got just a little bit of the edge done. So now we're gonna go file this and clean this up. Alright, so you take your broadhead here. I've got a file. So what I'm doing is I'm just truing up the edge here. Basically, you just want to go and file down the edges to bring the edges down to your markings and to balance both sides out. Another thing we're also going to do is you just want to clean up the edges back here on the sides. So I'm going to do that, and I'll show you what that looks like finished. Okay, here we go. I've just gone and filed this down, so you can see this is the shape we're at right now. The next thing I'm going to do is just lightly sand the surface here. I'm just taking off all of the markings and just giving the steel a nice even finish. Almost done. There you go. So here it is. Now at this point, you should be able to just take your broadhead and put it on your arrow like this. So there it is. Okay, so to glue this, I'm just going to be using hot melt glue. You could use epoxy or really any type of glue you wanted to use. I personally like using hot melt just because it's easy to work with and it's also easy to fix later. So you just heat the glue up, smear some into the tang. Then you want to take this and physically heat up the tang of the arrow, or of the broadhead. So you take it, you press it onto the arrow shaft, and now while it's still hot, you want to go ahead and make sure that it's lined up to the point. And a good way to figure this out is to actually spin the arrow on the point, and it should spin nice and even on that point. That means that the arrow is now balanced. Just want to give it a little squeeze. And then you want to go and wipe off the excess glue. And pretty much here it is. So now that the glue's set, I'm using this. This is a thin thread of Fast Flight. I like using Fast Flight for wrappings just because of its excellent abrasion resistance. You could use anything, nylon thread, polyester thread, silk. What we're going to be doing is starting right under the point. You want to go ahead and lay some of the thread down right at the point. You want to bring the thread around, back over. You can see that, and then you want to pull that tight. You want to move that wrap so it's as close to being right under the point as possible, and you just want to really pull it as tight as you can. So from there, you want to start wrapping the arrow shaft. As you can see, artificial sinew and real sinew work well for this as well. Okay, so once you've completely wrapped and covered up the tang, what you want to do is cut off about 10 inches of string. Right. Once you've cut the end here, you want to take the loose end, make a loop over your finger, and bring this section under, like this. Once it's like that, then you start wrapping the main wrap around. You want to move about 1/4 of an inch of wrap. Then you take this loose end, bring it up here, and then you want to bring your wrap back over it like this. You want this to be nice and tight. You can see. Okay, so comes to the end, you take your loose end, pull it all the way through. You just want to go ahead, pull that as tight as you can, and then cut it free. Okay. Here's the point. So here it is, hafted and ready to go. So at this point the broadhead is dull, there's no edge on this. I usually wait till I'm done with the fletchings before I actually sharpen this. But at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking this, it's just a clear coat, and I'm going to spray down the whole arrow. Get the arrow shaft, the point, and the wrappings, and this will just help keep everything together, and it'll help keep the steel from rusting. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to move on to the fletchings. I just wanted to mention that these broadheads, while they will work, are primarily for this display arrow, but you could use these, and I've had good results with these. The only thing is that while they do hold a decent edge, the main body is really soft, so if you hit anything hard, they'll bend. Sometimes they'll bend hard enough to where you can't fix them. That's another reason why I use hot melt glue, because you can just heat this up, pull it out, put a new one in, and you're good to go. So here it is. Here's the finished broadhead.